So I think maybe we've been doing this now full time for 10 years, and in the last 2 or 3 years, we're seeing more and more, these kind of pre-created moments. And I get that. It's really cool actually to have these different interactions put into the schedule. But we would encourage you to think about what's really important to you, all right? First look with dad, first look with bridesmaids. You also want to maybe do communion at the ceremony. And before the ceremony, you want to read letters to each other and maybe stand blindfolded on this side of the room. And then once you get all of these different things that in theory and maybe even on Pinterest look really cute and you plug that into your wedding day, it becomes just a schedule of thing after thing after thing, and there's no time for you to just be present and enjoy the day. So the organic chemistry that you see in our pictures that we aim for, where you're interacting with your groom and you just have that time to laugh with each other and tell those little inside jokes and, snuggle your mom and listen to her tell you how proud she is of you. Those things can't happen if you're trying to plan the entire schedule for the day. So we recommend, really stepping back and think, what do I really want to have set up and what can I let just happen organically, okay? And the more you can let happen organically, the more we can create and really bring that special magic to your own story.
Whether you're having an outdoor or indoor ceremony, it's really important to coordinate with your photographer on your ceremony time, because most likely your photos will be outdoors and you want to make sure that you have enough light to finish all of your photos. Also, after your ceremony, I think it's really important to have romantic portraits at sunset. So you want to make sure that you build in enough time after your ceremony to have those special portraits.
So we really love when a bride books us and we have the ability to know about the ceremony time. We can really work from scratch and help based on the time of year, based on the venue, what lighting situation is going to be best. So a wedding in January has very different needs than, say, a wedding in July. And even though you may know when sunset time is, do you know necessarily, at what point you should stop before sunset time, or possibly what time you would want to start if you have 40 people in your bridal party, if you have a small family list. These are all things that we've worked on over the years, and knowing the time frame and being able to help you with the schedule lets us help tremendously with your overall photography experience and look. Beautiful light is king. You can get married at the most gorgeous venue, but say your ceremony is 7 o'clock at night, you're going to miss out on so much of that venue. But then in the same sense, you could get married somewhere that's half as nice, but you have this gorgeous romantic light coming in. We can really do so much with beautiful lighting.
Photography, so many times that I have like a potential client, email me, contact me and say, hey, I'm interested. And then, you give them your prices and they come back and say, oh, you're a little bit too much out of our budget. Well, then they actually end up hiring my wife, and then my wife goes to them and goes, oh, well, you could have hired Nick. You had the money in your budget. You just didn't even know it was available, So I think understanding, photography is weird because that's like the first thing that I think a bride books, that in a venue, simply because you want to get your engagement session, you need your save the date image to go on your save the dates, and I think before figuring out how many people they're going to have their wedding, what the other cost is throughout the entire wedding, I think they've already kind of locked into a photographer that they may or may not feel comfortable with, after a certain time. I think that's probably wise to know exactly how much you can spend on everything before just saying, oh, I can't afford this particular photographer.
Nowadays, everybody's cell phone is a great camera. They're going to have it at the ceremony. And we see this happen a lot where guests will actually step out into the aisle and sometimes block our shot of the bride coming down the aisle with their cell phone. So it's really a good idea in some way, whether it's on the invitation or a sign at the ceremony, just asking guests not to use their cell phones and take pictures. Just remind them you've paid to have professional photographers and videographers document the day so that they can just be there and be present and they don't have to whip out their phones and take pictures, because it really can ruin a great moment. So we highly recommend when you're looking at, if you're having a church wedding, especially in the South where we do most of our weddings, churches seem to be very strict when it comes to photography and especially videography. So when you're picking out the church that you want to have your wedding at, it's a good idea just to go and talk to them about any rules that they have pertaining to videography, because a lot of times, especially in the South, in a church, they're going to stick the videographer in a balcony. And we're not going to be able to get that iconic shot of the bride and her father coming down the aisle because of some restriction at a church. And for some brides, that might be the deal breaker. You know, some brides might be looking at a venue or a church, and if they know that, then that might be the reason they decide to go with the venue. And we love shooting at venues because typically we're unrestricted and we can get the best shots for our brides. But just know that with churches, just make sure you know what the restrictions are for videography and photography, so that the product that you want, we're able to get that for you.
A lot of my brides come to me asking whether or not they should have a first look. And they often think that it's for timing issues. They think that, that photographers want to go ahead and get all the photos out of the way before the ceremony so that they can just be done and is quick and over with. But first looks, honestly, are my favorite part of the day. And for many reasons. First of all, it totally does away with all of the nerves, whether it be from the bride, whether it be from the groom. But I think the most special part of it is it's just a really intimate moment between you and your groom, and you wouldn't have that otherwise. And the emotions that I can capture when that happens is something that you'll never get.
So we really love for our couples to do a first look. We don't require it. We can make it work either way. But I think some of the little things you don't think about, right, whenever you don't do a first look is, what time is your ceremony, right? You're showing us pictures you love, and they're all in the natural light. You're getting married at 6 o'clock, and you're not seeing your husband until you say, I do. Well, unfortunately, the one thing we haven't mastered is making the sun come out at 7 o'clock at night in January. So if that's the case, your pictures are all going to be artificially lit. All right, so you're not going to have any natural light pictures. We're also going to have a very small amount of time with you, 20, 30 minutes tops for portraits compared to 2 segments, right? Double that amount of time earlier in the day. So you're going to have half the amount of portraits that you normally would have, and that's just the logistics of time. That doesn't mean, what kind of photographer you have or who's doing it. You can't make more time. So if you're not going to see each other earlier, it's going to cut your time literally in half.
If you wait to see your groom for the first time coming down the aisle, he can't tell you at that moment how you look. He can't embrace you. He can't show all of the emotions that he's feeling right now, because all eyes are on you two. You're saying your vows. And then once it's over, that moment's kind of gone, and you're celebrating with everybody, and everything's happy, but you don't get that intimate, climactic moment that you want. And it's awesome for pictures, and those are usually my favorite pictures, and it's usually the couple's favorite pictures.
To first look or not to first look, we always prefer doing a first look. I just think that the emotion that we get when we do the first look is always so much better. Plus, it's a good stress relief. Usually our couples are a little anxious up until that point, and then when they see each other, you can really just kind of see that melt away. Plus, brides get to hear their grooms tell them how beautiful they look and have that good moment with them. And it's great for the video. If you don't do it, then when you see each other during the ceremony, you don't really get to have that moment, because, you and, however many people are there. Plus, it really helps timelines. If you don't do a first look, then you're going to have to do all these pictures after the ceremony. And a lot of times that causes stress too, because after the ceremony, the brides know that, all their guests are at the reception waiting on them. And we also don't get as much really good footage for the video if we're really pressed for time. So first looks for us are, if a bride or groom are just adamantly against it, we're not going to bend anybody's arm. But if anybody asks, we're always going to encourage to do a first look.
So we a lot of times have, Pinterest boards or even inspirational pictures our brides send us, and we love that. That's totally fine. We're very visual. We like seeing the style and the feel that you envision for your wedding day. What we often get, though, and I don't think our girls realize this, is, they may send us the top 100 Harper's Bazaar wedding pictures from last year. Well, they're taken in the middle of the desert or on a mountain in Hawaii, and you're getting married at the Methodist Church downtown. So if you just absolutely adore these outdoor ceremony pictures, but you're getting married inside your hometown church, there has to be an understanding there, right? There's going to be some differences in your pictures. So I think when you're looking for inspiration for what kind of wedding pictures you want, you need to be a little bit more realistic about your actual plans for the day. Where are you getting married? What does that lighting look like? That's going to impact how your pictures come out more than anything else.
One thing I offer for my brides is a pre-bridal session before the wedding day. A lot of my brides will come to me and say, why would I need, a separate bridal session? And, 10, 20 years ago, when people were, getting married back then, everybody had a bridal session. It was like a studio session, a real formal type session. But nowadays, wedding photography is so creative. On the wedding day, there's so many things that can happen. Usually things go very smoothly, but there are things that can happen. It could rain, it could snow. There are so many different things that could happen that you can't change. People can be late. Your hair and makeup people can be late. Your bridesmaids can be late. Anything can happen. So why not have a separate day where you can control all of the elements and have that session just for you? And then a lot of my brides will take one of those portraits and have it displayed at the reception, which everybody loves to look at.
So whenever we do family formal pictures, we first come to our couple and say, what's important to you? Because every family is different, right? We might have one family who they have 4 sets of parents, where we have another one who maybe it's just mom and dad on this one side, no parents on this side. So it's very important to us to be able to serve you, to know that family list. And in preparing that, we do not want to take away too much of your day doing these family formals. These are kind of what we call our, very traditional mom shots. These are the lined up, they're going on the mantle, mom's gonna love them, you're gonna put some of these in your album, but it's not worth eating into your whole wedding day. So rather than how many people can we get in this segment, right? How many people can we invite? We recommend that you just stick to immediate family. It's going to keep it a lot less chaotic. It's going to make it a lot easier on you not to feel so overwhelmed and overdone with getting 30 people on the stage. And even beyond that, if you don't have a stage, you're getting married in a field, putting 30 people in line in a field is really not ideal, right? You're not going to see their faces. It's going to be kind of like herding well-dressed cats. We'll do it, but we don't recommend it. But one thing I think our girls don't think about when they have this large wedding party is how much time it's going to take to just get these gorgeous girls to each location. So you have all these lovely girls and you want to take 5 different, arrangements of them. Well, when you have 20 girls, it's going to take some time to get everybody out of the restroom, get them transferred over to the second location. So what ends up happening from a photography standpoint is we have to cover the basics with a big bridal party. You get a nice polished shot, maybe a couple of those, a couple of interactive shots where when we have a smaller bridal party, we can really take time to go to different locations, create a little bit more, play a little bit more. And that's just the logistics of it. And that's, when we talk about that, it's what's important to our couple. Do you want to have 40 people in your wedding that are close to you? Awesome. Then we will make that work. But if you're more about having the creative shots and being able to play a little bit more, then definitely consider sizing down those friends and who you want that's close to you.
First dance songs. We see this happen a lot, and it's just a little tip from me to you. When you pick out your song for the first dance, I would strongly consider cutting it down, especially if it's like a 4 or 5 minute long song, unless of course you're doing like some type of jazzed up dance. But most people aren't dancers. Most people are going to do the typical prom night dance where they're just going to hold each other and go in a circle. And after 2 or 3 minutes of that, things start to kind of get a little old or stale or awkward, especially with father-daughter or mother-son dances, because the crowd just, their attention span by that point, they're just not as into it. So a 4-minute song can feel like an eternity at the reception. So we definitely recommend just, first verse and chorus and then fade out. Also, if you have a band, ask them to play your first dance song on an iPod if it's not something that they're familiar with. Bands, and I've talked to a lot of band members, they'll appreciate this too because they don't want to embarrass themselves. And we've seen it happen a lot of times where a great band, an absolutely fabulous band, will try to sing a song that they're not familiar with and just butcher it, and it's bad. And you don't want your first dance song memory to be of just a butchered song. So don't feel like the band is going to be insulted if you ask to play it, because a lot of band members would rather you do that than them try to learn a song that they're not familiar with and potentially embarrass themselves too.
Relationships, to me, that's kind of sacred ground. Having a bride who has a great relationship with the photographer, I mean, it's who you're going to spend the majority of your day with all day in a wedding day. You're talking about like 10 or 12 hours. Not to mention the pre-wedding, sessions of engagements and bridal. You're trusting that person to put together like a photography timeline that you're going to feel comfortable with and not feel rushed or feel like you're being pushed all day and being tugged on to do certain different things. And your images. I mean, if you don't feel comfortable with a photographer, how are you going to get the best images of the most important day of your life? I've had a lot of brides actually come to me after they've already booked a photographer and say, hey, we did an engagement session with the photographer. We didn't feel comfortable. The session was a disaster. And then they end up having to basically pay off a previous photographer and then book me in the process. Trying to avoid that, if you come in for a consultation, I think you get a good feel for what kind of photographer that person is, or if it's going to be the right fit on your wedding day, and have those pictures. I mean, these pictures are meant to last, lifetimes, generations. I mean, showing your grandkids, what you looked at. What are all these crazy things these people are holding up, that we call phones or whatnot? Well, that's documented,
One thing that's super important on the wedding day is you should already have your wedding day timeline. You should have a photo schedule as well as a master timeline from your planner if you have one. It is very, very important to make sure that everybody that's involved in the wedding, everybody that's involved in pictures has this timeline, because if they don't, then that's where things can run behind. It's also important that your vendors have this timeline, especially your hair and makeup artists, because they're who you're going to start out with. So if they run behind and they don't know what time you have to be ready, then everything else will fall behind.
So getting ready locations, when you're picking where you're going to get ready at, make sure that it is a spacious enough place for you, all your bridesmaids, mom, mother of the groom, photographers, hair and makeup, videographers. It can quickly add up and get crowded. And if it's crowded, we can't do as good a job as we would like to with the video, because we see it a lot of times. A lot of the weddings we do nowadays, it's not uncommon to have 16 bridesmaids. And if you're getting ready in a hotel room with 16 bridesmaids and all these other people, it's almost impossible for us to get good shots during that time. And also just, it gets loud and all the chatter. I mean, it's good to have fun, but when you got that many people in a cramped up space, a lot of times it can create anxiety and it can get a little stressful because people can't move around. So I highly recommend find a place where you can get ready and be apart for a little bit from your bridesmaids. Because in that way it'll give us a good moment for you to relax, for us to get good shots of you getting ready, and it just makes for a better getting ready experience.
I think just like if you're choosing us for photography, you're doing so based on recommendations, you're doing so based on reviews, based on reputation. I think sometimes videography and even sadly planners kind of get skirted over here to a last minute decision, like, oh, we just need a day of coordinator, or, oh yeah, we kind of do want a video. Well, what we have seen is, first of all, that's the two things that we get after a wedding. Our brides say they wish they had done. We wish we had hired a quality videographer. We wish we had had a great planner. And those two decisions get skirted towards the end often. And what happens instead of, oh, we just have something to plug in there, and that's going to be better than nothing, is that something turns out to be a lot worse than nothing. A videographer without any experience is going to be a hindrance to us trying to get your pictures. They're going to not really understand how to create that delicate balance of interaction and at the same time stepping back enough to let things organically happen. So a videographer without enough wedding experience, and that's the key. You may have a videographer that has filmed, a bazillion of these kinds of events, but they're not a wedding videographer. And so that's why we're really big and keen on, here's videographers we've worked with, here's people we know, and we know that as a team, we can work together to create your love story.
Importance of printing your images. How many photographers in this industry, and probably a majority of them, are going to, as we call, shoot and burn? Show up on your wedding day, come back, and 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, all your images are on this USB drive, or this thumb drive, or whatever you want to call it. And then that's it. What are the odds of your family coming over to your house, as a bride and a groom, and saying, "Hey, let me see your wedding images," and you popping in this USB drive in your computer and be like, "Okay, let's all gather around our computer. Let's just thumbnail through, 800 plus images of our wedding day." Not going to happen, at least not in my opinion. You want to have something tangible that kind of tells a story in a really cool, unique way. It's your story to flip through a wedding album that you can, physically look at, have out, have your family come over, flip through it. To me, it's a tangible product. I mean, electronically, USB drives may not even be able to exist. I mean, it might be like a VCR. Like, how many people have a VCR nowadays? But those prints, frame prints, wedding albums. You're always going to have that.
When you're looking at a videographer's work on their website, just keep in mind your expectations relative to your wedding and where you're getting married at. If you look at our website, we've got weddings all over the country, and you might see a wedding on our website that's in Miami at this beautiful location, and your wedding's just completely different from that. Your video is going to be a little bit different. I mean, every video that we do, we try to make it custom to the couple and the feel of their day. So don't when you're looking at videographers' work, just know that your wedding's going to be its own unique piece, and it's going to be indicative of you and your groom and your wedding day, and don't have the expectation of what you saw somewhere else, because your wedding may be totally different.
Wedding photography I don't feel like should be price shopped, simply because it's the most important day of your life. It's images that you're going to cherish for generations to come. And to me personally, I don't see how anybody could put a price on that.